So today we're going through and looking at communication and how you're going to communicate your messages to your clients. Generally speaking, this is going to be how you're going to utilize email marketing to continually stay in touch with clients as they progress through their buyer's journey, from becoming aware that they want to find a builder and find a house plan that suits them, to where they then go into the consideration phase, where they start to compare you with other builders, and ultimately through to the decision phase. Because no matter what you do with your online advertising, you'll never quite know where people are in their buyer's journey. So the communication strategy you implement will help you tick off all of those boxes to make sure you're giving yourself the best chance to win their business. So when we think about communicating with your clients, especially using email marketing, there's a few things that I just want to run through that's going to help you understand how you can think about this as a system to put in place. Most importantly, so that you can set this and forget it, so that you're not always continually reinventing the wheel. You're only going to manage this sort of once a month, and it might only take 30 minutes of your time. So this is what we recommend. Now, there's thousands of different ways you can cut this. When we work with our individual clients, we craft something that's a lot more customized to suit them. But this is a general blueprint that you can use going forward. When we talk about email marketing, we often talk about email autoresponders, or another word that's quite popular is marketing automation. So there's a bunch of software out there that does this. You may have heard of Infusionsoft, which is just rebranded, I think. I can't remember their name now. Another company called ActiveCampaign or MailChimp. These are really popular solutions for email marketing, and each have their pros and cons. We won't go into the benefits of each platform in this video, but that's the sort of email marketing that we're talking about when we're talking about autoresponders. How do you set something up so that when someone requests some information from you, they automatically enter into your system and automatically will get emails in a sequence over time? So whenever we look at this, we always set it up with the same strategy in mind. That is, we have a short-term funnel and a long-term funnel, and then we have individual action funnels. So what that means is when someone takes an action, let's say they visit your website and say, hey, listen, I want those floor plans for that particular home design. They enter into their name and email. Then they go into this pipeline. When they take that action, you then send them the information that they requested. Automatically, it just gets sent out on your behalf by the software. And then they enter into the short-term funnel. And the short-term funnel basically loops around, and then they have a sequence of emails that will go out, perhaps, one the next day, one email sent 2 days later, another email sent 3 days later, another email sent 7 days later, and you'll have this sequence. And we talk about this being a short sequence. So we think about the buyer's journey in terms of 12 weeks. When someone's in the market to build and they're going to choose their builder, typically, no matter which market you're in, that time frame is often 12 weeks. I'll give you an example. So someone buys a block and then they all of a sudden say, right, we've put an offer on the block. That's not going to settle for, say, 45 days. We need to get on with looking for a builder. So straight away, they're now really urgently looking for the builder that they're going to build with. They've got all the block dimensions, they've worked out their budget for the block, and they've got the remaining budget for their build. They're now in the market to build and find a building company. That process will take about 12 weeks before they decide this is a builder we're going for. So this short-term sequence, you may want to think about developing that over 12 weeks so that no matter when someone comes into that short-term sequence, if they've asked for a brochure or if they've downloaded some other information from your website, they then move into the short-term sequence, and then for the next 12 weeks, you know that you're going to be communicating to them via email. So this is where you would have a sequence of emails. Now in the short-term sequence, we often say, tell your brand story. Make sure you point out your differentiation in the marketplace between you and the other builder. Now we've already done that homework in your brand story when we've crafted that in your blueprint. The other thing that you want to also do is make sure you've got your calls to action. So those calls to action may be as simple as requesting a design meeting, asking for more information from a sales rep, perhaps to come out on site. Whatever your calls to action and offers you've got, you can use in these emails. And again, this is all designed to get your customer to take the actions you want them to take. And you do this automatically, it runs in the background. Then what happens is you're going to find that there'll be some people that will enter into your pipeline, but they're not going to build for 12 months or 2 years. This is almost always the case if someone's doing a knockdown and a rebuild. Because they don't have that level of urgency more often than not, they're living in a house, they're sort of sorting out when they're going to knock it down, they're looking for ideas. A lot of them will come into your system, getting some information from your website, they'll enter into the short-term sequence, but they're not going to take any further action because they're not really ready to start pursuing their building ideas. So what happens then is once a short-term sequence finishes, the long-term sequence happens. Now in this case, what we recommend is people get tagged as a long-term communication. So these are prospects that are probably going to build in 6 to 12 months or 18 months, 2 years time. So in this sequence, you might reinforce a couple of other emails. You might plan to just have 12 emails sent once a month automatically on your behalf. And in those cases, we say and we suggest that you make those informational type emails. So they might be things like case studies or past homes where you've built and you want to show pictures and portfolios of that particular item or home. You also may do things like talking a little bit about something you're doing in a building as a builder in the community. So they could just be more informational type emails that keep you top of mind for when the client is ready to actually start to build. And again, less frequently you would add a call to action. So maybe every 3 to 4 emails in this case, you would have a call to action. Are you ready to build, or did you want to get some clarity around your build, or do you need help getting your budget and your finance sorted before you can build? So this sort of methodology works in that immediately you get the response and you're responding to a client with some info that they've requested. Then they will go into a short-term sequence that runs for up to 12 weeks with multiple calls to action. You're really pushing and asking for the business in this case. And then if they don't respond to that, they go into a long-term sequence, and this happens every month. That's a big picture. Now, I would suggest you tailor that to suit you, make some changes for what's right for your particular building company, and depending on what assets you've got. The next thing you do, and the last thing I'll touch on, is your email messages that you send out manually. So this is all automatic. Once you set it up, it'll happen without you doing anything more. But I would suggest that you also once a month send out some sort of update. It might be pictures of a home that you're building. It might be about an award you just recently won. It could be a staff profile, information about a new building supervisor you've just put on. Whatever the case is, at least do it once a month and diarise that so that once a month you're touching base with your potential customers and there's continually being reinforced with whatever it is you're doing. Now in these monthly updates, I would suggest that you don't even need strong calls to action. I would suggest have one call to action, but you don't need to have that stronger calls to action because that's all happening here anyway automatically. So this is just another way for you to add a little bit more personality and break it up and just make sure that it's current. So this whole sequence might be set up and you forget it for the next 2 years before you even address it again, but this will make sure your content is fresh all the time for anyone who's in your system. So I hope that's helped with your communication strategy. I hope you understand that sort of framework that we tend to lean towards when we're working with our clients. And I hope this has given you some tips on just how you can set up your communication strategy.